Hjalte Froholdt getting a 2-year contract extension rings true to Monti Ossenfort's credo: slow and steady. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, your team every damn day. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner, _ follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Going into my 8th season as host of Locked On Cardinals, and it's getting better every day. It's getting better every single day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the GameTime app. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Fun show today, like they always are. Budda Baker and James Conner need to harness their inner J.J. Watt. I'll explain. Other quarterback 2 options, not named Ryan Tannehill. If you missed yesterday's show, go check it out. I do the first segment on Ryan Tannehill, how the Cardinals should sign him. But first, and this is something that is obvious, but isn't discussed enough as a focal point. It's always like a nuance of why things are happening or not happening. It's a stark difference from everything we experienced during the last regime. And it's something that, while dormant seemingly a lot, it's necessary, and it's what winning organizations do. So the hardest thing to sell to a fan base is nothing. The hardest thing to sell to a fan base is taking a backseat during free agency. The hardest thing to sell to a fan base is slow and steady. Now, while what Monti Ossenfort is doing isn't going to be this forever, the Arizona Cardinals don't need to get any younger after this season. They'll have over $90 million to spend. They still have about $30 million, maybe a little bit less now. The Hjalte Froholdt got his 2-year deal. It's not always going to be like this. But this is the medicine the Arizona Cardinals, as an organization, absolutely needed in an effort to pivot away from the dysfunctionality of their history. Is it going to work? We don't know. But what we do know is the Arizona Cardinals are in a situation now, in a position now, to have possibilities like they never have before. And it seems like that's a very easy thing to say without having to back any of it up. Let's look at, and I've been getting into it with people on Twitter, which is great. I love that. At Clancy's Corner, _ Locked On Cardinals. I run them both. So whatever you want. Talking about Steve Keim is necessary for this storyline still. Come week 1, it won't be. It's not a comparison. It's reasons. It's not talking bad about. It's explaining what's happened. There's no emotion in this for me whatsoever. It's just what happened that is what gotten us and the Arizona Cardinals to this point. Us as media members, podcast hosts, radio hosts, whatever it is, you as fans, all witnessing what experience, especially over the last decade, and then pivoting to now, it's like, this is different, but it kind of looks the same early on. And just because the Cardinals aren't making splashes in free agency doesn't mean the same exact thing is going on like it did before. There's a plan now. And it's hard to sell to fans the slow and steady approach when all the Cardinals have been is not relevant since week 13 of the 2021 season. I understand it's a tough pill to swallow, and it's like, how much longer do people need to wait for this team to win more games than they lose? This is the medicine that's needed to be taken in an effort to completely hard reset the Arizona Cardinals organization. So with that, Monti Ossenfort staying slow and steady, that's how you build winning organizations. and this constant need. Go trade for the big player. Go be Howie Roseman. Go be John Lynch. Just because it's fun and it's flashy and it ruins fantasy football teams because sometimes two or three of your best wide receivers are now on the same team. It's not the real world. Sure, you need star power to win, of course. And just because you have the flashy free agents from that, from that group of guys for that specific offseason doesn't mean, oh, well, you know what? They checked all the boxes, winning. And yeah, you want the Cardinals to win as many games as the 49ers have. You want the Cardinals to win as many games as the Eagles have. But look at the Eagles. Their heart is gone now that Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon are gone. You can't fake that. You can't mask that. You can't sugarcoat that with a bunch of good players. We saw their implosion last season. So when it comes to things like this, and you see Hjalte Froholdt sign his 2-year contract extension, and you see, videos out of training camp today where guys are hugging him, dapping him up, like the dude is the microcosm for Monty Ball, not the old running back. I didn't realize that before I said that. First of all, I didn't think I was going to say that, and then second of all, I didn't realize that a NFL player's name was going to be, the same thing. I didn't think that. So, excuse me for that. And we're back. It's the microcosm of Monti Ossenfort's how he runs and builds his teams is what we've seen. Build through the draft, re-sign average to above average veterans to be able to make that cocoon for the rookies to be able to thrive and young players to be able to thrive and to protect Kyler Murray. Hjalte Froholdt's been fantastic. I see a lot of average. Another average player. Most offensive linemen are average or worse. Not all of them are all pro. Very few are all pro. So when you have a center who's the anchor, who's the spine, like I used to call it when Rodney Hudson was here for 15 minutes, Hjalte Froholdt has been fantastic. He and Will Hernandez are the 2 unsung heroes of this roster on offense and defense. They're the 2 unsung heroes of this team because, say it with me now, if you don't protect Kyler Murray, none of this is going to work. So giving him the 2-year extension is exactly what Monti Ossenfort would do in an effort to keep the bouncing ball moving in the right direction while positioning this team to at least jump back into relevancy in 2024. Not a playoff spot. Again, the playoff for bus crew. Keep rooting for that. And I'm not saying that with any sort of animosity. You hope it happens. What Monti Ossenfort has done, though, I will give you this. He's put the Cardinals in a position this year where it's like, they got a shot. It's an outside shot. But if you like last year's team had no shot at making the playoffs. This year it's like, crazier things have happened. Probably like the Cardinals who made the Super Bowl in the mid-2000s that Chris Collinsworth said was the worst roster to ever make a Super Bowl, which isn't necessarily fair. Larry Fitzgerald was top 5 receiver. Kurt Warner had a crazy flashback moment for 4 or 5 games at the end of that year. They're in the conversation for the maybes. Let's put it that way. For the outside shots, for the in the hunts to make the playoffs. But slow and steady is what it's going to be. And while it's hard to sell to fans, it's the right approach. And I do see some wrinkles of not so slow and steady, but calculated come next offseason when they're going to have more money than 95% of NFL teams. You may be speaking a different tune than this is how you build the framework to be able to maximize what they do next offseason. And that's it. Speaking of different tune, that's Clayton Tune's last name. I don't know if you knew that. He's QB2 currently on the roster. I discussed Ryan Tannehill yesterday. I'm going to give you some introspection into who else is available. And a stat that may blow your flippin' minds. Yeah, that's called a tease, baby. Next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, man. America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Huh? You bet $5, and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You get to watch all the games. It's unlocking Pandora's box. It's bringing you to Shangri-La. It's showing you what the greatness of Sunday Ticket is for 3 weeks just for making a $5 bet. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on. It's going to be a hell of a year. Thanks again. Now, for your second listen, enjoy the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Get daily insight to the best fantasy draft strategy so you can win your league this season. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Easy for me to say. The Arizona Cardinals have one above-average quarterback on the roster. They have one below-average quarterback on the roster in Desmond Ridder and one big question mark in Clayton Tune. Now, this whole conversation surrounding Clayton Tune, it's not what Clayton Tune can't do. It's what other players have proven to be able to do already. This is not a slight on Clayton Tune at all, believe it or not. There is a better option out there than Clayton Tune. If Clayton Tune has to start games, first of all, that means bad things that Kyler Murray got hurt. So you hope that doesn't happen. But I'm preparing people for what we've experienced over the majority of seasons Kyler Murray's played in this league is he's missing a game or two. And that is not abnormal anymore. I'll give you a stat here in a second that I didn't even know. I just wanted to see. And I didn't realize how much better my point is now than it was. Because for me, I use my eyes and my ears and my schnoz, and I say, okay, this is why this is happening. Let's look at the advanced stats and see, whatever. But when you're watching games and you're seeing the history of players and you're seeing trends and patterns with current players, it's like, well, this is why this should work. And then you can look up numbers and be like, hey, how right am I? Like, how will this number, because like you can find a number that'll strengthen any point or negate any point. It's just how it's how you box it and how you frame it. So I feel like numbers are kind of a misnomer in certain respects. Obviously, stats and everything are important, but you can find a stat that backs up pretty much any claim. With this, though, my equation was Kyler Murray misses a couple games a year. Colt McCoy held the team afloat. Colt McCoy no longer with us. He's alive, but he's just not. The Arizona Cardinals just announced his retirement. A hell of a double-digit career for one of the better and one of the more efficient college football players we ever seen. His efficiency numbers were wild at Texas, and they probably would have beat Alabama if he didn't hurt his shoulder like the third play of the game in the national championship game. Anyway, new offense caters to more of a mobile quarterback. Clayton Tune, mobile quarterback, 5th-round pick out of Houston, put up bonkers numbers like Houston quarterbacks do. Came in, we're completely removing the Cleveland game last year from his resume because that wasn't his fault. And then it's like, as of December 9th, 2023, 19% of starting NFL quarterbacks had a season-ending injury. Let's round it up. 20% of starting quarterbacks had a season-ending injury as of the middle of December. That blew my mind. That's a lot, man. That is a lot. Every year there's like one guy who goes down and says, oh man, that's terrible. 20%? So with that, it begs the question. Do you believe that Clayton Tune could win a couple games for the Cardinals in 2024? And if you believe like 30% of you believes yes, like 30% of your being, every single person, 30% of your being believes yes. Okay. Does that mean that there may be a better option out there? That's all I'm investigating here. And that's why I did a segment yesterday on Ryan Tannehill. Because Ryan Tannehill is the best option out there that wouldn't be via trade. Who could come in, and just play backup quarterback for the Cardinals. You'd have to pay him a little bit more, but it's money well spent. 20% last year. That craters a team's chance to make the playoffs in most instances. And that's not even 20% of quarterbacks who miss games. CJ Stroud missed games. I think Geno Smith missed a game. It was the Drew Lock experience. You need a contingency plan that allows the locomotive to keep on moving, even if your quarterback goes down. And to miss a year, I'm talking about spot starting. Okay? So aside from Ryan Tannehill, let me give you some names. Brian Hoyer, Blaine Gabbert, AJ McCarron, Matt Barkley, Trevor Siemian, Nathan Peterman, Logan Woodside, and Ben DiNucci. Those are the top names on Spot Track. Shout out Mike Giannetti and Spot Track. Those are the top names for quarterbacks that are still available if the Cardinals wanted to go out and get one, not named Ryan Tannehill. I know Ryan Tannehill wants a starting job. He's not going to get one. He would have already gotten one. So you can take the Andy Dalton approach. You can take the Joe Flacco approach a little bit lighter with Joe Flacco. Like Andy Dalton was like, listen, I just want to play football. I'll sign. I'll come in and start. I mean, he did it in Dallas. Dak's leg fell off. Andy Dalton came in and played there. Chicago, he got playing time when they sat Justin Fields. Carolina, he got playing time. Like anywhere he goes, he gets playing time. Ryan Tannehill could sign with the Cardinals. He'd be fantastic for the room. He'd be a fail-safe. He'd be the best backup quarterback the NFL has. And the Cardinals would be able to trust that if something were to happen to Kyler Murray, they'd still be ready to rock on game day. And while, again, this isn't a negative towards Clayton Tune, it's a positive towards there are better options out there. Something that won't break the bank and something that will position the Cardinals with more strength going into the season. Ryan Tannehill could run the hell out of this offense. I almost swore. He could run the hell out of this offense. But I wanted to explain the names that were out there. Let's read it again. Everything you got. Brian Hoyer, Blaine Gabbert, AJ McCarron, Matt Barkley, Trevor Siemian, Nathan Peterman, Logan Woodside, Ben DiNucci. 20% almost of starting quarterbacks in 2023 were out with a season-ending injury. That's enough. Go get a backup. Go get a backup. And name him Ryan Tannehill. You don't get a backup who has a different name and then name him Ryan Tannehill. You go sign Ryan Tannehill. I just wanted to clarify. Budda Baker and James Conner need to harness their inner J.J. Watt in 2024. I'll explain next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Bink GameTime app. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time, searching through thousands of tickets. My favorite part of the app is that you can see the view from your seats before you buy them. I'm going to talk about it every live read. I talk about it every live read. I pepper it in. It completely takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, man. Like, They have a low price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. So GameTime has you covered for every possibility pretty much. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, I guarantee. I'm at a point now where I'm 40 where it's like, I don't know if my movie references hit. Like, I know people my age will understand the I Love You Man reference I just made. I don't know if somebody 19 years old or 20 years old will get it. I don't know if somebody 60 years old will get it. I have no idea. Where am I? I'm not sure what to do with my hands. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. So here's the thing. What J.J. Watt did when he came over and signed that 2-year deal. And while maybe he got more credit than he deserved, it's possible. J.J. Watt was fantastic here. And when I say got more credit than he deserves on the impact on the football field, like he played J.J. Watt. He played, he was 40%, 50% of himself, 60% of himself when he once was. But the big impact that he had was with the culture. The big impact that he had was with the young guys. And for those that don't remember, this was his introduction. Who J.J. Watt is. Zaven Collins forgot breakfast sandwiches when they were ready to go play golf. Zaven Collins had to roll down the fairway while he was being videotaped as punishment. It was great. What J.J. Watt's major impact was, though, on this team was with one guy specifically, Zach Allen. Zach Allen got paid because J.J. Watt got something out of him that wasn't shown before. And it wasn't like Zach Allen was trending that way anyways, to be able to be that guy on the D-line. Okay, injuries, Boston College were injuries in the NFL for the first couple of years that kind of halted any sort of momentum he could have gained. But his last year here, J.J. Watt and that was it. That was the emergence of Zach Allen. He got paid very, very well by Denver. It's not always veterans that are helping young guys who are struggling to stay afloat. It's also veterans helping guys who are ready to pop, allow them, massage that out of them sooner, where it's like, okay, so you look at Dadrion Taylor-Demerson, you look at Trey Benson. They're perfect examples. This is a perfect Zach Allen to J.J. Watt scenario with Trey Benson to James Conner and Dadrion Taylor-Demerson to Budda Baker. And Jalen Thompson also, because, he kind of plays a hybrid of the two. And they're at the age where Budda Baker and James Conner are, where even if the Cardinals don't re-sign them because Rabbit and Trey Benson go nuts this year somehow, and they're like, oh, no, thank you guys, which I think would be a mistake. They're like, this is a win-win for both Budda Baker / Jalen Thompson and James Conner. They're still the ones. Zach Allen and J.J. Watt were like neck and neck. And J.J. Watt was on the tail end of his career and everybody knew it. Like, not vice play, this was it. He was coming here, playing a couple years, and then retiring. James Conner and Budda Baker can play another 3-4 years somewhere else if it comes to that. So this isn't like a Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love situation where they'd be threatened by these younger guys, and neither of them are like that anyways. So to maximize, and I mean, for the betterment of the team, like this byproduct would be incredible, expedite the process of getting used to the NFL game faster under the tutelage of both safeties and James Conner, that would be an incredible situation to witness in 2024. Because things like that, more so on the defense, are what move this process along faster than expected. And the Cardinals don't really have a corner that could do that. They don't really have a pass rusher that could do that. It's really James Conner, Trey Benson, Dadrion Taylor-Demerson, Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson. And I know that this sounds like me counteracting myself or being counterintuitive to them needing to bring back Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson. Well, what if Rabbit and Trey Benson really emerge as bona fide, ones in their positions, and Budda Baker and James Conner help them get there? And then why do you need Budda Baker and James Conner anymore? If Budda, like the one thing that people struggle to understand what I say and they just don't agree with me is Budda Baker being 70% of what Budda Baker was and James Conner being 70% of what James Conner was at their peak benefits the Cardinals when it comes to contract time. Like, they don't need to be the savior of the offense and the defense, respectively. And in the process, they're molding and framing their replacements. And by replacement, I mean guys who are going to share snaps with them, not guys who are going to completely overshadow and eclipse what they're doing. If James Conner comes back, it's going to be 50-50 next year, 60-40 Trey Benson, if he takes that step. And Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, you're going to see all three of them on the field this year. I would assume it's like, again, Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis are maniacs. Like, controlled maniacs. They're mad geniuses when it comes to the personnel they put on the field. So Budda Baker and James Conner harnessing their inner J.J. Watt for what J.J. Watt did with Zach Allen while playing alongside him would expedite this process incredibly. And I don't see it not happening. Like, that's who Budda Baker and James Conner are. They're company men. They're Arizona Cardinals. And yes, James Conner was drafted by the Cardinals. But he is an Arizona Cardinal now. And for those that don't, like, every day, as you know this, but I think once in a while, it's good to reset this. If this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, thank you. And let me kind of explain what I mean. The Arizona Cardinals were a transplant team. Free agents coming from everywhere, drafted players only playing 2 or 3 years and then falling off or going somewhere else. It's hard to build a culture when it's like that. And when you had it before, like 2020, even 2021, what Arizona Cardinals were on, like bona fide? Kyler Murray, Chandler Jones at that point, DJ Humphries, Budda Baker. Like, how many guys were true impact makers who were drafted or resonated with the Arizona Cardinals organization at a high level and were company guys? A handful. Less than half, always. It's hard to build a culture when you're bringing in veterans and everything from other teams because you can't fill a roster. So when you look at it now, when Monti Ossenfort came in, it's like, okay. Come 2 years from now, you could be looking at Pro Bowlers at every position, young guys drafted by the Cardinals, and then you have to have some of those veterans who have been here with this team for a while to be able to fill the mold out, to be the icing or the cherry on top. I think Budda Baker and James Conner are perfect for that. Now, if they want to go make more money elsewhere, fine. I think Budda Baker would be the one who would go of the two. I had Kyle Odegaard, friend of the show, used to write for the Cardinals for a long time. He said he thinks both are gone. He thinks both should be gone. I just don't agree. Having the safety net of the men who coached the young guys in their positions how to be better faster while being here as they become Pro Bowlers, it's the best case scenario. We'll see if it happens. Alex Heinze, Locked On Cardinals. Remember, say it. Say it out loud. Without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.